My sister let her daughter steal from mine and lost access to everything I owned. Reddit stories. One sentence from an 8-year-old exposed years of entitlement no one wanted to confront. What followed turned a family favor into a permanent line in the sand. Hi, I'm Simon Reeves, 39, and the day my 8-year-old niece wrapped her fingers around my daughter's brand new birthday tablet was the same day I realized something in my family had quietly rotted all the way through. It wasn't the tablet itself. It wasn't even the way Maya strutted off with it like a tiny monarch claiming tribute. It was the sentence that came out of her mouth, bright, confident, absolutely certain. Auntie says I can have whatever I want. 8 years old? Not a flicker of doubt. Not even a glance at me, the actual parent of the child who just unwrapped that gift 30 minutes earlier. My daughter Emma stood frozen, holding the purple case she'd picked out herself, the one she'd begged for. Her face didn't crumple. She didn't grab or argue. Emma doesn't do that. She went still the way kids do when they're trying not to cry in front of people who think they're too old to cry. I looked at my sister, Jessica. I waited, 1 second too, for her to say the obvious thing. Maya, honey, give it back. It's not yours. Instead, Jessica shrugged. An Olympic-level shrug. The kind that says I'm not just right, I'm righteous. She's right. Your kid has too much anyway. Maya never gets nice things like this. It's only fair. Fair. She said fair? Across the room, my wife Claire's hand slipped into mine under the table like she was bracing for impact. She knew that word. She knew what it did to me. When you work 12 years as a cop, fair becomes a philosophical minefield. It's never fair. It's just what people use when they want something that doesn't belong to them. I walked over, calm, steady, and gently lifted the tablet out of Maya's hands. She immediately wailed as if I'd stolen her property, which, honestly, made a certain twisted sense given who was raising her. I put the tablet back into Emma's trembling hands. Then I looked at my daughter and said quietly but firmly, "Baby, go upstairs and pack your things. We're leaving." Emma didn't argue. She just nodded and walked away, gripping the tablet like a lifeline. Jessica stared at me. "You're being dramatic." "No," I said. "But you need to pack, too." She blinked. "What? You and Trevor and Maya. You have 30 days to get out of the lake house." Her jaw dropped. "What are you talking about? That's the family house. We've been using it for years." "It's my house," I said. "I own it. And as of right now, you're no longer welcome there." Jessica laughed. Actually laughed. "You can't." "I can. And I am." And just like that, like a switch flipping, like the moment before a storm breaks, I knew this wasn't about a tablet. It was about 8 years of me letting my sister live rent-free not just in my lake house, but in my boundaries, my patience, and apparently my common sense. What I didn't know, what I absolutely could not yet imagine, was how far this one moment would ripple, or how much it would cost all of us before it was over. But I felt something I hadn't felt in years. A spine. A line. A decision. And once I make a decision, I follow it all the way. Even if it burns everything down on the way out. Emma's suitcase thumped softly down each step as she returned, her small hand wrapped around the handle like she thought someone might try to take even that from her. Claire met her on the stairs, smoothing her hair, whispering something I couldn't hear but recognized instantly, the mother's version of, "You're safe." Meanwhile, Jessica was pacing my living room like she owned it, her voice climbing from annoyed to offended to full-on operatic outrage. "You're seriously kicking us out of the lake house over a tablet? Over a child's toy?" "It's not about the tablet," I said. "It's always about the tablet when you're being ridiculous." She shot back. Claire snorted. Jessica ignored her. Trevor stood near the wall, hands in his pockets, eyes scanning the floor. He was a man trying to become invisible through sheer hope. "Trevor," Jessica barked. "Say something." He flinched like she'd thrown something at him. "Jess, maybe we should." "No. Absolutely not." Simon, this is insane. I'd heard that tone from her before, righteous, condescending, dripping with the conviction that her wants were the moral center of the universe. But this time it hit differently. Maybe because Emma's pink suitcase was sitting by the door. Maybe because my daughter had walked upstairs trying not to cry in her own home while her cousin got permission to steal. Maybe because I'd finally stopped pretending my sister was the victim in every scenario. You've had 8 years of free use of my property, I said quietly. 8 years of bills I paid. 8 years of treating it like your own house. It was our house, Jessica snapped. You let us use it. Use it, I repeated. Not take it. Family helps family, she said, as if reciting scripture. I almost laughed. It wasn't humor. It was exhaustion wearing a mask. Family doesn't mean I subsidize your life forever, I said. You don't get to raise your daughter believing she's entitled to what other people have. Oh my God, she scoffed. This is because I said Maya deserves nice things. You're so rigid. So obsessed with rules. I'm obsessed with boundaries. Same thing. She shot back. No, I said. But I understand why you think that. Claire stepped forward. Jessica, this is the 4th time this year Maya's taken something from Emma. The 4th. And every time you defend it. Every time, you make Emma feel guilty for having something your daughter doesn't. Jessica blinked. Well, excuse me for wanting my child not to grow up deprived. You want her to grow up entitled, Claire said evenly. And you're succeeding. Jessica's face hardened. You know what? Fine. We'll leave tonight. But don't expect me at Christmas. Or Thanksgiving. Or any family event ever again. She pointed at me. This is on you. It usually is, I muttered. She stormed toward the door, snapping at Trevor and Maya like a drill sergeant with a grudge. Maya's wailing restarted the second she realized she wasn't getting the tablet back. The sound followed them out, echoing down the driveway as they left in a flurry of indignation and poorly parked tires. When the door shut, the house went still. Not peaceful. Not yet. Just still. Claire leaned against the counter, exhaling slowly. Well, that happened. Emma tugged on my sleeve. Daddy? Are we really going to the lake house? I knelt to her level. Yeah, sweetheart. Just us. We're going to have a quiet weekend. Will Maya be there? No. Not this time. Emma nodded. She didn't smile, but her shoulders dropped in relief. Claire helped her with her shoes. Do you want to bring your new tablet? Emma hesitated. Is it safe? My heart twisted. It is now, I said. It will always be, as long as it's yours. Emma finally smiled, a tiny one, but it was a start. And right then, something in me locked into place. Not anger. Resolve. Because this wasn't just about property, or a tablet, or even Jessica. This was about the kind of father I wanted to be. And the kind of man I refused to be anymore. The turning point didn't happen when Jessica stormed out of my house. It happened 3 days later, when I walked into the lake house with Claire and Emma and saw, firsthand, what 8 years of my sister's borrowing had actually turned into. I'd always known they used it often. I'd even joked about needing a reservation system. But seeing it with clear eyes, without the haze of guilt and obligation? It was like walking into someone else's home. Someone else's life. New couch I didn't buy. New TV I didn't approve. The walls painted a color I would never choose. A framed collage of Maya's school photos, right above the fireplace. Their shoes were lined up by the mudroom door. Their blankets were folded on the couch. Their half-used shampoo bottle sat in the bathroom like this was their permanent address. Claire's breath caught. Simon, I don't think you understand how much they moved in. Emma looked around, wide-eyed. It looks different. Different wasn't the right word. It looked claimed. It hit me in the chest. My grandparents had spent summers here, quiet, gentle people who taught me how to fish off the dock, who let me help make pancakes on the old gas stove. And now the stove was replaced. The dock had a new ladder. There was a giant inflatable unicorn float drifting outside, tethered lazily to the dock. A unicorn I did not buy. Claire stepped beside me. "This doesn't feel like your house anymore." And that was it. That was the click. The moment the emotional lock slid into place and sealed the next chapter. Because I suddenly understood something I hadn't been ready to face. My silence had turned into permission. My generosity had turned into expectation. My sister's entitlement had turned into occupation. And my grandparents' lake house, my inheritance, had turned into someone else's weekend resort. A place I didn't even feel comfortable in. I pulled out my phone. Dialed. "Hi, this is Sarah Kimball," came the voice of the best real estate agent in 3 counties. "Sarah," I said. "It's Simon Reeves. I need you to sell a house." There was a tiny pause. "Your house?" "My lake house." More silence. Then, "How fast?" "As fast as legally possible." She didn't ask why. Probably didn't need to. "Give me 48 hours. When I hung up, Claire exhaled like she'd been holding her breath since Christmas 2017. "Are you sure?" she asked softly. "No," I said. "But I'm done being sure only when it benefits other people." Emma held my hand, her small fingers wrapping around mine with quiet trust. "Daddy?" she asked. "Are we going to live here now?" I lifted her into my arms. "No, sweetheart. We're going to enjoy it while it's still ours." She nodded, content. But Claire watched me with that perceptive, unsettling wife look. "You're really going through with this?" "I am." "Your sister will lose her mind. She already lost her boundaries." "I'm just catching up." Claire raised an eyebrow. "You think your parents will take this well?" "No," I said. "But taking things well hasn't exactly been our family tradition." And then the universe decided it hadn't made things dramatic enough yet, because that was when my phone buzzed. A text from Jessica. "We're coming up this weekend. I assume the house is clean?" Not a question. A notice. Claire read it over my shoulder. She still thinks she has unlimited access. I know. "What are you going to tell her?" I stared at the message. And for the first time in a long time, my answer felt easy. "Nothing," I said. "By the weekend, it'll be listed." Claire's eyes widened. "You're not giving her a warning?" "No more warnings," I said. She had 8 years of warnings. And as I stood there, in the middle of a house that should have been filled with memories instead of entitlement, I realized something else. The most dangerous thing you can give family isn't money. It's unchecked access to your life. Because they won't just take what you offer. They'll take whatever you forgot to protect. The listing went live on a Tuesday. By Thursday morning, I had 3 offers, 2 above asking. By Friday, the buyers had signed. By Saturday, the closing date was set. The speed was dizzying, even for me. But that was the point. I didn't want a long, emotional runway for Jessica to rev up the guilt engines and launch an 8-year campaign titled, "How dare you remove my free vacation home?" No. This time, I was cutting the engines mid-flight. But the universe is never content with quiet transitions, not in my family. Because at 9:17 a.m. that Saturday, as Claire was helping Emma pick out clothes for the day, my phone rang. "Jessica." I let it ring out. Then it rang again. And again. On the 4th call, Claire walked into the living room and handed me the phone like it was a dangerous animal. "You have to answer eventually." "Eventually isn't a real deadline," I reminded her. "Simon." I sighed and picked up. Jessica didn't bother with hello. "Why is the lake house locked?" I sat down at the dining table. "Because it's my property." "You changed the code." "Correct." "You can't do that." "I can." And I did. There was a silence, the tight, simmering kind, before she demanded, "What's going on?" "Here's the thing about my sister, She thinks silence is cooperation. She thinks if she waits long enough, people will fill the void with explanations, excuses, apologies. Not today. I sold it, I said. 3 seconds of dead air. Then, you sold it? Yes. Without telling me? That's how selling my own property works. You're joking. You're actually joking. Her voice cracked into a sharp, breathy laugh, the kind you hear from someone whose worldview has just been hit by a truck. We have a trip planned next weekend. Maya already picked out which swimsuit to bring. Then you'll need a different lake. Are you insane? Her voice was shrill now. That house is part of our family. No, I corrected. It was part of our grandparents' family. It passed to me. And then you treated it like a public utility. You said we could use it. I said sometimes. You turned it into a timeshare you don't pay for. We've made memories there. Yep. All on my dime. She gasped like I'd slapped her. Are you seriously keeping track of money? Family doesn't nickel and dime family. You're right, I said. Family shouldn't. Which is why I stopped. 48 hours ago. Jessica went silent. Dangerous silent. The kind of silent where you can hear teeth grinding. Then she landed the line she thought would win. Mom and Dad will never forgive you. I leaned back in the chair. Then they can buy you a lake house. Even Claire looked up from across the room, eyes wide, mouthing. Whoa. Jessica sputtered. You think this is funny? You think this is some kind of power move? No, I said. I think it's overdue. Her voice dropped into a low, venomous hiss I'd only heard once in my life, when she found out our grandparents left the property to me alone. You're punishing me. No. I'm protecting myself. Protecting yourself from what? The expectation that I owe you something. I said. I don't. You're unbelievable. And you're out of time. I hung up. Not gently. I stared at the silent phone for a long moment. Claire placed a hand on my shoulder but didn't say anything, not yet. She knew the silence wasn't for her. It was for me. For the weight of the past 8 years settling into place. For the sound of a boundary finally being drawn loud enough for the whole family to hear it. But the real turning point came later that afternoon, during my shift. Dispatch called in a trespassing report. At a lake house. My lake house. And guess who was inside? That was when the whole situation went from family drama to a police matter with my badge number on it. The moment I heard the dispatcher say the address, something in my gut tightened, not surprise, not anger, just a calm, resigned certainty. Of course Jessica was still there. Of course she thought the rules didn't apply to her. Old habits die harder than common sense. I didn't volunteer to take the call, but I didn't avoid it either. That's the thing about being a cop in a small town. You don't get to choose which parts of your personal life end up overlapping with your professional one. You just hope the two don't merge in a spectacular train wreck. This one was definitely leaning train wreck adjacent. When I pulled up to the house, 2 patrol cars were already there. Officer Martinez and Officer Riley stood on the porch with the new owners, Mike and Laura Chun, nice couple from Boston who had absolutely not signed up for this level of chaos. Jessica's SUV sat crooked in the driveway like a declaration of war. Martinez spotted me first. Reeves. He gave me a look halfway between curiosity and oh no, family drama. This your circus? Technically, I said. It used to be my tent. Mike came forward, anxious but polite. Officer Reeves, I'm so sorry, we didn't expect. You did the right thing, I said. This is legally your property. Riley knocked again. Ma'am, open the door. Through the window, I saw movement. Jessica finally appeared, yanking the door open with a put-upon sigh like we were inconveniencing her. Can I help you? She snapped. Riley gestured toward the Chuns. These are the legal owners of the property. They've requested you vacate immediately. There must be some mistake, she said, turning to me as though expecting me to fix it. Simon didn't actually sell it. I actually did, I said. You can't sell the family house, she shrieked. Riley held up the documents. Ma'am, the deed transferred this morning. You are trespassing. Jessica folded her arms. No. I am not leaving. Not until I talk to my brother properly. He didn't mean to sell it. He was emotional. I meant it, I said. This isn't happening, she muttered. This is a misunderstanding. No, I said. It's a boundary. Trevor appeared behind her, looking like a hostage in a shampoo commercial. Jess, maybe we should. No. She glared at him, then the officers. We have rights. Not on property you don't own, Martinez said patiently. You have 10 minutes to gather your immediate belongings and leave. Anything left behind can be picked up later with 24-hour notice to the owners. Jessica stared at him, aghast, then at me. You're really doing this? She whispered. To your own sister. I didn't let myself flinch. Jessica, you put yourself in this position when you ignored the 30 days I gave you. I thought you were bluffing. I don't bluff. Her face twisted. Not anger this time. Something smaller. More fragile. The moment where indignation gives way to the fear of consequences. But Jessica never sits in her own fear for long. She defaults straight into blame. You've always been jealous of me. She spat. That actually made Riley snort behind her hand. Jealous of what? I asked, genuinely curious. My life. My family. The fact that Mom and Dad always trusted me more. You've been punishing me for that your whole life. There it was, the mythology she'd built for herself, the narrative where she's the star, the victim, and the heroine all at once. Jess, I said, this isn't punishment. This is the first time in 8 years I've stopped rewarding bad behavior. You think you're so high and mighty because you're a cop. She snapped. No, I said. But I am the guy who owns this house. Trevor stepped forward, defeated. Jess, let's just go. Jessica looked like she wanted to throw something heavy at him. Or me. Or everyone. But she didn't. She grabbed a duffel bag, yanked it off the couch, and started shoving things into it while muttering every creative insult she knew. Martinez leaned over to me. Family's tough. I huffed a humorless laugh. You have no idea. When everything she could carry was packed, Jessica stormed out past the Chuns without looking at them, without acknowledging the officers, and without a single ounce of the humility the moment required. Maya trailed after her, sniffling quietly, clutching a stuffed unicorn. Trevor carried 2 bags and a look that said he was deeply reconsidering every decision of the past decade. They climbed into the SUV. The engine revved. Jessica rolled down her window. Stared at me. This isn't over, she said. For you, I replied. It absolutely is. She peeled out of the driveway. Silence settled over the property. Laura exhaled shakily. Does this happen often in this town? No, I said. Just in my family. Mike gave me a sympathetic look. Are you okay? I will be, I said. You two go enjoy your house. It's yours now. As I walked back to my patrol car, Claire texted. How did it go? I typed back. They're out. For good. But even as I hit send, I knew the fallout hadn't even started yet. Because my phone was already buzzing again. Mom. Dad. Jessica. And none of them were calling to congratulate me on personal growth. My parents called 17 times in 4 hours. 17. By the time I finished my shift and drove home, I was emotionally braced the way a firefighter braces before entering a burning building, mask on, heart steady, fully aware that the smoke is probably going to sting. Claire was waiting for me at the dining table, a mug of tea in her hands. You ready? She asked. No, I said. But that's never stopped them before. I called my mother first. She answered before the first ring finished. Simon James Reeves, she snapped, full title, full volume, full nuclear launch. What have you done? I sold my lake house, I said calmly. That is your grandparents' house. It was, I corrected. Then they left it to me. You were supposed to keep it in the family. I did. I kept it for my wife and daughter, who are my family. You are being petty and vindictive, she said. All because Maya wanted a tablet. No, I cut in. Because Maya took a tablet. And because Jessica told her she had the right to. It's just a tablet, Mom said. You could buy another one. It's not about the tablet. Yes, it is. She insisted, voice rising. You ruined the family over a silly toy. Mom, I said sharply. Stop. She actually did? Then I told her everything she'd missed. 8 years of bills. 8 years of repairs. 8 years of Jessica redecorating a house she didn't own. 8 years of entitlement she'd sold as hardship. 8 years of me subsidizing someone else's lifestyle. When I finished, Mom huffed. Well, you should have said something earlier. I did. Repeatedly. Jessica ignored every boundary I ever set. You shouldn't punish her for being a mother, she said. What does that even mean? She has more responsibilities than you. So I should give her more of what she doesn't pay for? It's called compassion. Mom, I said evenly. You've confused compassion with enabling. A long silence. Then she hit me with the old classic. Your grandparents would be ashamed. That one landed, not because she was right, but because she knew exactly where to aim. Before I could respond, Dad's voice came through the line. Let me talk to him. There was shuffling, a muffled protest, then Dad spoke. Son, he said quietly, I don't agree with how fast you did this. I know. But I understand why you did. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Thank you. You gave her notice. You told her to get her things out. She didn't listen. His voice was steady, not angry, not emotional, just honest. Actions have consequences. She forgot that. Mom shouted something faint in the background about loyalty. Dad ignored it. I'm not happy you sold the house, he admitted, but I can't fault your reasoning. Dad, I said, she was still there on closing day. She still thought she owned it. She doesn't think she owns it, he said softly. She thinks you owe it to her. That was worse. And truer. We hung up with an understanding, not approval, not disapproval, just clarity. But clarity doesn't quiet phones. And sure enough, 5 minutes later, it rang again. Trevor. I almost didn't answer. Almost. But curiosity beat exhaustion. Trevor? His voice was low, tired, stripped of the usual background hum of Jessica's directives. Simon, can we meet? I hesitated. Is Jessica with you? No, he said quickly. She doesn't know I'm calling. That surprised me more than the trespassing call earlier. Why do you want to meet? Because I owe you an apology, he said. And I don't want to say it over the phone. Claire, overhearing, raised her eyebrows. I nodded slowly. All right. Tomorrow morning? Yeah, he said. Thanks. When I hung up, Claire leaned forward. You think he's sincere? I think he's exhausted. Is there a difference? She asked. Sometimes, I said. Sometimes not. I looked at Emma, curled on the couch, reading on her tablet, the same tablet this entire disaster had technically started with. She looked peaceful. Safe. Protected. And in that moment, I understood something Dad had hinted at without saying outright. You don't lose family when you draw boundaries. You lose people who were only there because you didn't have any. Trevor showed up at the diner looking like a man who had slept in his car, emotionally if not literally. His shirt was wrinkled, his eyes were tired, and he kept running a hand through his hair the way people do when they're trying to stop their lives from unraveling in public. He gave me an awkward nod before sliding into the booth. Thanks for meeting me. Sure, I said. What's going on? He exhaled, long and shaky. I wanted to apologize. I blinked. Not a phrase commonly heard in my family vocabulary. For what? I asked. For everything, I guess. He tried to smile, failed. For not stepping in sooner. For letting Jess walk all over you. For letting her teach Maya the way she has. For the lake house, for the tablet, for the fact that I knew she'd pushed your generosity too far, but I didn't do a damn thing to stop it. I studied him for a moment. This wasn't performative guilt. This was a man running autopsies on his life choices. Trevor, I said, you're not responsible for Jessica's decisions. No, he said quickly, but I enabled them. He pushed his coffee aside, fingers tapping the ceramic like he was gathering courage. You know what Jess said after the officers escorted us out? He asked. What? That you did it because you've always hated her. That you're jealous. That you want her to suffer. I rolled my eyes. Sounds familiar. Yeah, he said. But here's the thing, I finally realize she believes it. She genuinely believes she's the victim in every single situation. Even one she caused. I didn't respond. I didn't have to. Trevor swallowed hard. I've been trying to talk to her about Maya. How she's raising her. How entitled she's becoming. How she's learning to cry her way into other people's property. How did Jessica take that? I asked. He gave a hollow laugh. She said I was undermining her. That I didn't support her as a mom. I nodded. That sounds like her. I told her the truth. Trevor said quietly. I told her she was teaching Maya to be the kind of kid no one wants to be around. That was bold, bold enough that I nearly choked on my water. She didn't like that, Trevor added unnecessarily. And you? I asked. What do you want? He looked down at his hands. I want my daughter to have a chance at not becoming her mother. The silence between us shifted, became heavier, more complicated. I filed for divorce, he said finally. I sat back. Trevor. I know, he said quickly. Believe me, I know. But I can't fix her, Simon. And I'm tired of being the guy who watches bad behavior and tells myself it's not my place to interfere. He looked up at me, eyes red. The lake house thing was her wake-up call. Maybe not in the way you wanted, but it pushed everything to the surface. Everything that's been wrong for years. I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it. Don't be. Trevor shook his head. Honestly, it made me realize how long I've let Jess hurt people. Me, Maya, you, and how used to it I got. You did what I should have done years ago. You set a boundary. He let out another long breath. Maya's been going to therapy, he added. Kid's only 8 and already dealing with entitlement issues. Therapist says it's fixable. But it's going to take time. Emma's been asking about her, I said gently. His face softened. Maya misses her too. She just doesn't know how to say it without sounding like she's trying to take something. We sat in quiet for a moment, two men sorting through the wreckage of a family structure that had never been designed to hold this much weight. Finally he said, I just wanted you to know I get it. Why you sold the house. Why you snapped. Trevor, I said. I didn't snap. I woke up. He smiled a little at that. Yeah. I guess you did. When we parted ways, he looked lighter, as if telling the truth had taken something out of him, but also given something back. Claire was waiting when I got home. How did it go? She asked. Surprisingly well, I said. She raised an eyebrow. Trevor well isn't sorry, or Trevor well isn't Jessica's right, you're a monster? The first one. She nodded. Good. Emma was in the living room, reading. She looked up. Daddy? She asked. Will Maya come visit again someday? I sat beside her, pulling her into a gentle side hug. Maybe, I said. But only if she understands boundaries. Emma nodded like that made perfect sense. Good. I don't want her to take my things. I won't let that happen again. She rested her head on my shoulder. I know. And right there, my daughter trusting me, openly, without hesitation, I understood something with absolute certainty. I hadn't destroyed anything. I'd finally protected something worth keeping. The weeks after Trevor and I met were strangely quiet, the kind of quiet that feels like a ceasefire rather than peace. No calls from Jessica. No surprise visits from my parents. No dramatic Facebook posts about betrayal from those closest to you, which I had honestly expected. Silence can be suspicious when it comes from people who weaponize noise. Claire noticed it first. She's planning something, she said one night while we brushed our teeth side by side. Your sister doesn't let anything go. Especially not something she thinks was done to her. I know, I said. But after the trespassing incident, there's not much she can do. Claire spat, rinsed, and shook her head. You're adorable. Incorrect, but adorable. She wasn't wrong. 2 days later, my mother arrived at our house unannounced. Not called. Not texted. Arrived. She knocked as if the wood owed her money. Claire peeked out the window, winced, and whispered, Your turn. I opened the door. Mom brushed past me, purse clutched like a legal brief, jaw tight with the determination of a woman who came prepared to win a fight she hadn't been invited to. We need to talk, she said. I closed the door behind her. About? She rounded on me. Your sister. Hard pass. Simon. No. She blinked. You can't say no to a conversation. I just did. And I'll repeat it as many times as necessary. She pressed her lips together, choosing diplomacy, her version of it anyway. She's hurting, Mom said. Your decision blindsided her. I nodded. Yes. Consequences often do. Her eyes flashed. You have become cold. No, I said. I've become consistent. Mom sat on the couch, smoothing her skirt out the way she always did before giving a speech. Your sister is not perfect, she began. I sat across from her. Correct. But she's had a hard life. Lots of people have hard lives, I said. Most don't pay for them using someone else's property. Simon. She abused my generosity. For years. You watched her do it. You let her do it. And any time I tried to set a boundary, you called me selfish. I was trying to keep the family together. No, I said quietly. You were trying to keep Jessica comfortable. That finally stopped her. The truth tends to do that, when spoken without anger. She's your sister. And I never stopped loving her. I said. But love without boundaries isn't love. It's surrender. Mom looked away, jaw trembling, not with emotion, but with the effort of rebuilding her argument on the fly. She tried again. She lost the lake house, Mom said. She feels displaced. She lost access to it, I corrected. Not the same thing. That property meant everything to her. It meant everything to Grandpa and Grandma too, I said. But you didn't see them using it as leverage to control people. Mom's shoulders tensed. You should have talked to her before you sold it. I gave her 30 days' notice. She ignored it. Then she trespassed on closing day. She thought you weren't serious. That, I said, is her problem. Mom's voice cracked, not with sadness, but with frustration. She thinks you hate her. I don't, I said. But I no longer allow her to treat me like a doormat. My mother stared at me, really stared, and I saw her recognize something she'd missed for years. I wasn't the child in this dynamic anymore. I wasn't the peacekeeper. I wasn't the one who folded. I was simply done. After a long moment, she stood up. I hope you and Jessica find your way back to each other someday. I do too, I said honestly. But that depends on her, not me. Mom hesitated at the door, fighting the urge to get the last word. This time, she didn't win. She left without saying another thing. Claire came downstairs after the door closed. Well? I rubbed my forehead. She tried. And? I didn't budge. Claire smiled faintly. Good. But my wife has always had a sixth sense for emotional tremors, and she leaned against me and said, "This isn't the last of it." She was right. Because Jessica had been quiet. Too quiet. And the next wave of fallout was already building, waiting, swelling, shaping itself into something sharp enough to cut through the fragile stability we'd just begun to rebuild. I could feel it coming. And when it landed, it wasn't subtle. The next wave didn't hit like an explosion. It hit like paperwork. A month after Mom's surprise visit, I received a letter from a lawyer. A thick envelope. My name typed neatly on the front. Claire handed it to me with a raised eyebrow. "What is it?" she asked. "My sister," I said automatically, "has finally escalated." And I was right. Inside was a formal demand letter. Jessica was attempting to claim that the lake house sale was fraudulent, that I had acted out of malice, and my personal favorite, that she had equitable ownership through long-term familial use. In other words, she was suing me for selling my own house. Claire stared at the papers. "Does she think this will work?" "No," I said. "She knows it won't work. She just wants me scared. Or tired. Or guilty. But the thing about being a cop for 12 years, I've seen far more terrifying things than a poorly drafted civil threat from a lawyer who probably charges by the emotional meltdown." I called the attorney listed. A calm man named Fred with the voice of someone who has seen every possible version of family drama and categorizes them by severity. "Mr. Reeves," he said after I explained the situation, "your sister has no case whatsoever. Zero. She is not a co-owner. She didn't contribute financially. She ignored written notice. And you sold the property legally. I'll send a response." "Can I write one too?" I asked. "You can," he said, "but mine will be less expressive." I let him handle it. 1 week later, Jessica sent my parents a mass text claiming I had lawyered up against my own family. Mom called in tears. Dad sighed so deeply I thought the phone would crack. But something had shifted, finally, in the family dynamic. Dad spoke first. "Jess," he told her on speakerphone with me silently listening, "you can't sue someone for selling property you don't own." "Yes, I can," she snapped. "No," he repeated. "You can't," Mom chimed in. "Your brother should have told you." "I told her 30 days before the sale," I said. "And she ignored me." Jessica went silent. Not because she agreed, but because people like her don't know how to navigate a conversation where everyone else sees the truth. Dad handled it gently, but firmly. "You've been leaning on your brother too much, Jess. It was time for a change." That wasn't what she wanted to hear. She launched into fury, betrayal, favoritism, victimhood in stereo. Mom attempted to comfort her. Dad told her to calm down. Jessica hung up. It was messy. But it was honest. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like the villain in a story someone else had written. A month later, Jessica quietly withdrew her legal threat. No apology. No acknowledgement. Just silence. Trevor finalized the divorce shortly after. He got joint custody. Maya started to change, slowly, painfully, but noticeably. Her therapist suggested limited playdates to rebuild trust. One afternoon, Emma approached me while I was fixing the fence in our backyard. "Daddy?" she asked. "Can Maya come over sometime, if she doesn't take anything?" I knelt down, brushing dirt off my hands. "Do you want that?" She nodded. "I miss her. But I don't want her to think she can just take stuff." I smiled. "Then we'll make a rule. And if she follows it, she's welcome." Emma considered this seriously, then nodded with the kind of thoughtful acceptance only kids have. Months passed. Our house felt warmer. Lighter. Like we had pulled something toxic from the air. Claire and I used the lake house money responsibly, some into Emma's college fund, some into savings, some into a small camper we used to travel on weekends. The irony wasn't lost on me. Losing the lake house gave us more freedom than owning it ever had. Then, one spring afternoon, while we were packing the camper for a weekend trip, my phone buzzed. A text. From Jessica. Just 4 words. I hope Emma's well. No apology. No olive branch. Just the first crack in her armor. And strangely, it was enough. Claire read over my shoulder. You going to reply? Yeah, I said. Not much. But something. I typed back. She is. Hope Maya is too. That was it. A doorway, not open, but unlocked. Enough space for the possibility of something better someday. And maybe that's all a family needs after a storm like ours. Not perfection. Not complete reconciliation. Just the willingness to try again. This time with boundaries that don't crumble the second someone pushes.